Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience. I'm here tonight with the second part of my full review of the iFi stack, and that would be the Zen 1 Signature DAC and the ZenCan Signature Hi-Fi Man version amp. And I did the first part of this review a couple weeks ago and concentrated primarily on the DAC. Well, this is the second part of this review, and this part is going to concentrate primarily on the amp, and I'll give you a quick look at it here. This is the iFi ZenCan Signature, and this is the HFM version, which is intended for Hi-Fi Man headphones. So anyway, this was loaned to me for review by iFi Audio, and before I go any further, I did want to say that apologize for this taking me like 3 weeks to get the second part out on this, and actually my reviews have been coming out pretty slow for about 6 weeks now. You probably know I run a lawn care business, and we had like 2 months of real dry weather when things were slow in June and July. Then we had 6 weeks of heavy rain through August and the beginning of September, and I was just so busy working. And this business, you got to work when you can, and so anyway, it slowed down a little bit, and I'm going to try to get some videos out in the next couple of weeks. These are well overdue. This video here, and then I've also got my full review of the Singzer SA1 headphone amp that I need to get out, and my full review of the Hi-Fi Man EF400 headphone amp, and I'm going to try to get all three of these out before the end of this month, September. So anyway, once again, sorry for the long delay. I've got quite a few messages on YouTube asking me when these reviews are going to come out, and I know you've been waiting a long time. I think it's been pretty close to 3 months since I did my first impressions of this. So anyway, getting on with my full review here. This unit currently sells for $299 US. It is a Class A dual mono fully balanced headphone amp. It has 3 analog inputs, which would be RCA, 3.5 millimeter single-ended, and 4.4 millimeter balanced. It has 2 headphone outputs. One would be 6.3 millimeter single-ended, the other is 4.4 millimeter balanced, and it also has another 4.4 millimeter balanced output on the rear of the amp, which you can run it into another amp if you want to. It has 4 gain settings, which are 0 decibels, 6, 12, and 18 decibels. It has the Hi-Fi Man HFM, that's the why it's in the name, the HFM version. That is basically a button that is a pre-programmed EQ that is intended specifically for Hi-Fi Man planar magnetic headphones. And I did try several Hi-Fi Man headphones with this amp, and later on in this review I will talk about each one and what power settings I thought worked best and how I thought they sounded with the HFM button pushed. And I will explain the HFM a little bit more in a couple minutes. It also has what's called X-Space, and that is basically it's intended to make your headphones sound more like speakers. And iFi claims that it creates a wider sound stage, but in my experience, I'm not hearing a wider sound stage. I'm actually hearing a slightly narrower sound stage, but I'm hearing more depth of the sound stage. It puts the sound out further in front of me, and that actually does, to me, make it sound more like speakers, because speakers, unless you're sitting right between them, are going to be more out front, where headphones, you're hearing the sound here, where speakers, it's coming from out here. And by putting the sound stage out a little further in front, I think it does make it sound more like speakers. So it doesn't do what iFi says it does in their on their website, but I think it is effective and does do the job intended. So anyway, Hi-Fi claims a signal to noise ratio of 122 decibels and a dynamic range of 122 decibels. And they claim, as far as power output, that this unit puts out 1600 milliwatts at 32 ohms from the single-ended headphone output. That'd be your 6.3 millimeter. And it's capable of putting out 756 milliwatts into 300 ohms from the balanced output. And this does work pretty well with a high impedance headphone. So I'll talk about that a little bit later too. So anyway, the size of this unit is 6.3 inches wide by 4.2 inches deep, and that does include the volume knob and the RCA jack sticking out the back. And it's about 1¼ inches tall. It weighs in at 1.7 pounds, and it comes with, first of all, Hi-Fi's deluxe power supply. I think these sell for about $60, $70 on their own. This is a really nice power supply. It's 5 volt, and it comes with this RCA cable. Nothing fancy. It's about 18 inches long, and it will work putting combining, this DAC, the DAC and the amp, and you can put them either on top of each other or side by side, either way, and it will work with this cable. Like I said, nothing fancy, but it seems to be of good quality. And then this doesn't come with the amp. This is actually an option, but Hi-Fi sent this to me, and this is a 4.4 millimeter to 4.4 millimeter connector. And this is used to connect the DAC and amp from the balanced output of the DAC to the balanced input of the amp. And I will be honest, I think it does make a sound improvement, mostly with the sound stage. I think it makes the sound stage a little larger and a little bit better separation between the instruments, and maybe a slight advantage in clarity. That's hard to tell. It's subtle if there is a little bit, but I do feel that it's worth. I think this sells for $69, and to me, I think it's well worth the price. You don't have to use this specific cable, but I think using the balanced output into the balanced input does make a small improvement. So anyway, let me move in a little closer here and show you the amp. And we'll start out at this side. You have your power on off button. Then you have your input selection, which selects between your 3 analog inputs, your RCA, your 3.5 millimeter, and your 4.4 millimeter balanced inputs. Then you've got your button, it's called Power Match, and this is basically your 4 gain settings, and each time you push it, it toggles through, and it does have a little LED light that shows which gain setting you're on so you don't forget, and also the input here has little LED lights also. Then you have your volume knob, and you have your 6.3 millimeter single-ended headphone output, your 4.4 millimeter balanced headphone output, and then this button here is for your Hi-Fi Man EQ and for your X Space. And basically what happens is you start out, both are off, and then if you push it once, it turns on the EQ for the Hi-Fi Man headphones. If you push it a second time, it turns on the X Space. If you push it a third time, it turns on both. Then if you push it a fourth time, it turns off both, and you're back to just, your neutral setting. Anyway, on the back of the unit here, and I'll start again at this side, this is your balanced input here, where, let me make sure. Okay, I didn't want to tell you wrong. That is your balanced input for your 4.4 millimeter cable from your DAC. Then you have your 3.5 millimeter single-ended input. Then you've got your RCA set of left-right single-ended inputs. Then over here you have a 4.4 millimeter balanced output if you want to run it to another amp. And then you've got your power in here where your power supply connects with your 5-volt DC input. Before I get into my description of the sound, I wanted to talk for a minute about the equipment I used in reviewing this unit. First, I used two different sources. My first source was my HP desktop using the USB output, and basically I used CDs that had been ripped to the computer in a lossless format. And then my second source was a Cambridge Audio CD transport run into the DAC. I didn't run it directly into the amp. I ran it into the DAC as a digital signal and used both the optical input and the coaxial input. And then as far as headphones, because this is recommended for Hi-Fi Man headphones, this is the Hi-Fi Man version of this amp. I did try it with several Hi-Fi Man headphones, and I'll go through and tell you each one how they sounded and what power setting or what gain setting I used and how they sounded with both the HFM EQ and with the X-Space. And then as far as comparing it to other amps and DACs, I did compare it to the Zen DAC, the version 1 that I've got sitting here on my desk. I don't know if I guess it's kind of behind me, but anyway, I've had that for a couple of years. I ended up buying that because I really liked it. I thought it was a great combination amp DAC for the price. That one originally sold for about $129, and then since I've done these reviews, the request I've gotten over and over and over, people keep asking, how does this compare to the Hi-Fi Man EF400, which is a combination amp DAC? And I've had that for a couple months now. Probably see it sitting down behind me on my desk here. So that's mostly what I concentrated on, because that unit at $599 is very close to the same price as these two units combined as a stack, and that seems to be what everyone wants to know, how it compares to the Hi-Fi Man. So that is the main comparison I made. And then kind of for kicks, I compared it to the Burson Conductor 3 reference. I realize it's not a fair comparison. That's a combination amp DAC, but it sells for about 2.5 times the price of this combined stack. And then even more for kicks, I compared this as a stack to the Audio GD Master 9 and R8 DAC stack, which once again isn't fair. That stack sells for about 6.5 times the price of this stack, but that is my reference right now that I compare everything to, and I wanted to know. You know, I didn't expect this to compare to that or even hold its own, but I wanted to know how close it got. How close will a $650 stack get you to a $4,200 stack? Will it get you halfway there? Will it get you 3/4 of the way there? So that was kind of my intention, and I'll talk about those things, that comparison in a few minutes. So anyway, as far as, I did want to mention that for this part of this review, I primarily, to review this amp, used the DAC that was intended to be combined with it, and that would be, like in the picture behind me, the Hi-Fi Zen 1 Signature. So anyway, my feelings about the sound of this amp. I would say it's slightly on the warm side of neutral. It is a Class A amp, and Class A amps tend to be a little bit on the warm side of neutral, and that's exactly how it sounds to me. You know, not extremely warm, not like tube amp warm, but warmer than a lot of solid state amps I've heard. Okay, it has excellent clarity and detail. The resolution is really good. You know, I have no complaints about that at all, especially for a $299 amp. The sound stage is wide and it has pretty good depth. You know, I can hear a little bit of depth of the sound stage and a little bit of layering out in front of me. Compared to the Zendag version 1. Okay, I did at one time have the Zencan along with that, and but that was like, I don't know how long ago was that, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I did have to return the Zencan. It was loaned to me. I would have loved to kept it. Excuse me, but the Zencan wasn't in my budget at the time, so but I was able to keep the Zendak version 1. I was able to buy that. So anyway, I can't tell you how close this compares to the original Zencan that sold for $199. This is a signature version, which is supposed to be a better version. I can't tell you how much difference there is because I can't go from 2 years ago, my memory of the Zencan. I do believe this is slightly better, but I can't really tell you precisely how much better that this is than the original Zencan. But anyway, the Zen DAC, the version 1, is a combination DAC and amp. And comparing this stack to the Zen 1, or the Zencan, the Zen DAC version 1, this is definitely a step up. If you have a Zen DAC, probably, definitely the version 1 and probably the version 2, this is going to be a definite step up. I don't know if the difference, well, the Zencan does have quite a bit more power, but also I think it's a better DAC, and I just think it has better clarity, better detail, better separation. You know, not to discredit the Zen DAC, it's really, really good for the money, but this stack here is definitely a step up. You know, there's a significant improvement. So, you know, if you're wondering if I go from the Zen DAC to this $650 stack, am I going to hear an improvement? Definitely. I mean, by having the Zencan, you're going to definitely have more power, and I do believe it's a better DAC, and you've got far more inputs, and you can do a lot more with it. So, I also want to compare this to the Hi-Fi Man EF400, like I mentioned earlier, the Audio GD Master 9, the Burson conductor. But first I'm going to talk about the headphones and how each headphone worked out with this, and then I'll get back to that at the end of this review. But first I'm going to take a break for a few minutes, and then I'll come back and finish this up and let you know how I feel. Like I said, the question everyone keeps asking is, how does this compare to the Hi-Fi Man EF400? So I'm going to answer that question for you when I get back. Well, I'm back from a short break and wanted to talk about the headphones that I tried with this amp and how they each worked out. And because this is the Hi-Fi Man version of this amp, I wanted to try as many Hi-Fi Man headphones as I could and let you know how this worked out. So I tried the Hi-Fi Man HE400 SE, the HE560, the Sundara, the Edition XS, the Ananda, and the Aria Stealth. So first of all, the first headphone I tried was the HE400 SE, and that is a very power-hungry headphone. It's a budget headphone, probably the cheapest planar headphone you can get at, I think, at $109, but it needs a lot of power. If it's underpowered, the bass is really lacking, and the bass can get muddy, and the bass is very weak, doesn't have any punch or dynamics to it, so it's actually a very good headphone to judge the power output of an amp. So I tried it with both, from both the single-ended and the balanced outputs of this amp, and it actually worked very well with both. This amp actually, at lower impedance, puts out more power from the single-ended output than it does the balanced, but into higher impedance headphones it puts out more power from the balanced output. Well, the Hi-Fi Man HE400 SE, I believe, is only 20 ohms. It's a very low impedance headphone. So actually this amp into that load is putting out more power from the single-ended output. But anyway, didn't really matter. It sounded really good from both. And I tried different gain settings, and from the 12 decibel gain setting, which is the third setting, it sounded very good from both single-ended and balanced outputs. And from the 18 decibel, it sounded excellent. This little amp does have enough power to drive the HE400 SE very well, and that's both from the single-ended and balanced output, so you don't have to go out and get a balanced cable, which could cost more than the headphone itself, to get a good sound out of this. I did try the HFM button, and I thought it sounded very good with the HE400 SE, and the X space button, which changes, like I said, moves the soundstage a little bit forward, but a little bit narrower. I thought it sounded really good. So this is a very good match for the HE400 SE. Okay, I tried the HE560, which mine is the version 2. It's probably about, I don't know, 5 years old or so. And that is another very power hungry headphone, but it has a higher impedance. I believe that one is 50 ohms. And I was not able to try that headphone from the balanced output because I only have, that headphone uses 2.5 millimeter plugs at the ear cups, and I only have 2 cables that work for that. One is a single-ended 6.3 millimeter at the amp end, and the other is a 4-pin XLR at the amp end. I do not have a cable that is 2.5 millimeter at the headphone end and 4.4 millimeter balanced at the amp end, so I was only able to test that headphone. I was only able to test that headphone from the single-ended output. So anyway, from the 12 decibel gain setting, it did a pretty decent job, but it didn't bring out the best in the headphone. From the 18 decibel, I thought it did a very good job. It didn't take it as far as it could go. That headphone needs a lot of power to reach its full potential, but I thought from the highest gain setting, I thought it did a very good job of driving the 560. Like I said, not 100%, but I think maybe like 90% of its potential. Okay, I tried the HFM button, and I didn't like it with the 560. I thought it brought the mids too far forward and made the mids sound a little bit shouty. So I wasn't crazy about it, and I also preferred the X space button to be off with the 560. One of the strong points of the 560 is a very large, wide sound stage, and I thought it took some of that away. So I preferred it with the HFM off and the X space off. Next, I tested the Sundara, and I used the balance output to test the Sundara because I do have a cable that goes from 3.5 millimeter, which would be the rest of the Hi-Fi Man headphones, to the balanced output 4.4. So anyway, the Sundara from the balanced output, with the 6 decibel gain setting, I thought it sounded good. With the 12 decibel, I thought it sounded excellent. And at 18 decibels, it was not necessary. It was more power than the Sundara needed. The HFM setting, or button, I thought it sounded pretty good with the Sundara. I liked it. It boosts the sub bass a little bit and gives a little more energy to the mids, and I thought it was a good sound. The X bass, I also thought it sounded pretty good. Okay, the Edition XS, also running from the balanced output. It's 6 decibels of gain. I thought it sounded pretty good. With 12 decibels of gain, I thought it did an excellent job of driving the Edition XS. 18 decibels of gain, once again not necessary, more power than the Edition XS needs. The HFM EQ I thought made the Edition XS sound very good. I liked it. And the X space button, I also thought it sounded pretty good. I could kind of take it or leave it. It just kind of depends on the mood I'm in. Okay, next I tested the Ananda. This is the original non-stealth version of the Ananda. And once again from the balanced output of the Hi-Fi amp. And the 6 decibel gain setting I thought did a pretty good job of driving the Ananda. The 12 decibel did an excellent job. And once again, the 18 decibel gain setting was not necessary for the Ananda. It does not need that much power. You're down at like probably below 9 o'clock on the volume knob, and it makes the volume real touchy. So, once again, I recommend the 12 decibel setting for that headphone. And once again, the HFM button, I didn't like it with the Ananda. I thought it made the mids too far forward and kind of shouty sounding. And the X space button I thought sounded okay with the Ananda, but probably wouldn't use it. Okay. Next, I went to the Aria Stealth, and once again used the balanced output of the Hi-Fi amp, and it's 6 decibels of gain. I thought it did a pretty good job. At 12 decibels of gain, it sounded really good. It did an excellent job driving the Aria Stealth. The Aria Stealth, though, keep in mind, is easier, quite a bit easier to drive than the original Aria version 1 or version 2. Probably needs half as much power. So even though the 18 decibel setting was not necessary with the Aria Stealth, if you have a version 1 or version 2, you're probably going to be using the 18 decibel setting. Okay, the HFM setting, I preferred it off with the Aria Stealth. I personally think the tone balance is as close to perfect as any headphone I've heard with the Aria Stealth, and it does not need any EQ or adjustment, in my opinion. So I would leave that off. And also the XS, or the X space button, the Aria Stealth kind of has a narrow soundstage to begin with, so I think that button actually hurts the Aria Stealth and narrows the soundstage even more. So I would leave both of those off with the Aria Stealth. So basically, I would say that this amp, the stack, the Hi-Fi stack, I would say is a very good match with the HE400 SE, with the Sandara, and with the Edition XS. Very good match with all 3 of those headphones. Okay, if you have an Ananda, and I haven't heard the Ananda Stealth yet, but this is based on the non-stealth Ananda, it sounds really good, but I don't think this amp quite takes the Ananda to its full potential. This, it's $650 for the stack, a deck, an amp combination. I would consider that sort of mid-fi, and I would consider the Ananda a little bit above mid-fi, and I would say that this amp and DAC takes the Ananda maybe to about 90% of its full potential. With a higher end amp and DAC, I think you can get a little bit more out of the Ananda. Okay, same thing with the HE560. I think the HE560, and it might work better from the balanced output. Like I said, I didn't have a cable to test it from the balanced output, but from the single-ended output, I thought this amp was lacking a little bit in power for what the 560 needs, and once again, only takes it to about 90% of its potential. As far as the Aria Stealth, I really like the Aria Stealth. It is a very good headphone. I think that it deserves a little bit more. It sounds really good from this amp and DAC, don't take me wrong, or don't get me wrong, but I think it has more potential. I've listened to it on higher end amps and DACs, and I don't think this takes it the Aria Stealth to its full potential. I would say it takes it about 80% of the way. Like I said, it does sound very good. If you've got an Aria Stealth, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with the i5 stack, but you're not going to get the full potential of what the Aria Stealth is capable of. Like I said, you're going to get about 80% of the way there. Okay, the ZMF Atrium. I did listen to that quite a bit on this, and it sounds very good, but once again, I don't think this amp DAC stack is capable of taking the Atrium to its full potential. I mean, plugged into a higher end system like say the Audio GD Master 9 R8 DAC stack, it takes it further. Same thing with a couple of nice Waveborn tube amps I have right now. I think they take the Atrium to a higher level than this is capable of. Once again, the Atrium does sound very good, but you're not going to hear the full potential of the Atrium from this stack. You know, it gets you close, it gets you 80%, but not all the way. Okay, same thing with the Kennerton Rogner, and that's the planar version. I mean, that is a $4,000 headphone, and this is a $650 stack. The Rogner sounds very good, but once again, it's not at its full potential. It has more to offer than what this amp DAC stack can provide, and it does deserve, you know, something a little higher end. And, you know, but if you spend $4,000 on a headphone, you're probably going to be able to spend more than $650 on an amp DAC. If you can't, if you spent all your money on a headphone, this will, you know, take it like 80% of the way to its potential, but not all the way. You know, it does sound good, but it could sound better. Okay, what everyone has been waiting for, and the question I keep getting is, how does this compare to the Hi-Fi Man EF400, which is a combination amp and DAC. It happens to be an R2R DAC, and I'm not going to lie, I've only heard about 4 R2R DACs so far, but I really like them. And to me, R2R DACs compared to Delta Sigma DACs, even though they don't measure as well, the way I would describe the sound of an R2R DAC is it's kind of like comparing a tube amp to a solid state amp. The tube amp doesn't measure as well, but it just has that warmth and the more of a liquid sound, and more, in my opinion, a deeper sound stage with more layering, more of a three-dimensional sound. So anyway, I'm not going to lie to you, I really like the EF400 as an amp DAC. It has incredible sound. It's about the same price. I think it sells for $599. So you're at a real close price, real close in the price range to this stack. Okay, as far as sound, with every one of these headphones, I actually prefer the sound of the EF400. It's a little warmer, it's a little richer, it's a little more dynamic with a little bit more punch, and the bass has a little bit more weight and a little bit more control. So sound wise, I'm not going to lie to you, this sounds very good, this stack is very good, but I actually really like the sound of the EF400 and would choose it with any of these headphones. But and this is a big but, the big problem is, and I haven't done my full review of the EF400, which I intend to get out in the next couple weeks. The EF400 only has one digital input, compared to this stack has 4 digital inputs if you count Bluetooth. Okay, the only digital input is USB, which for me limits me to only being able to use the EF400 at my desk. I can't put it into my main system because I can't use a CD player or anything with a digital coax or optical output with the EF400. It only has one digital input, which is USB, and it has no analog input, so I can't run another DAC or another analog source into it. So the sound is great, but I don't know why Hi-Fi Man chose to only put one digital input and no analog inputs on that amp. It deserves more, but I'm assuming they did it to hold the price down. Okay, I would gladly pay $100 more for that amp if it had a digital or a coax and optical input, and I'd love to see it with a analog input too, so I could hook another DAC up to that amp, and because it's a great sounding amp, great sounding DAC. So not to take away from this, I really do like this. It has a very good sound, it's very well balanced, and it's way more versatile. If you only need a USB output, if you intend to use your amp on your desk, the F400 might be a great choice, but for most of us, we're going to need some more inputs. And, so if you need some inputs and need a much more versatile amp DAC stack, then the i-Fi is definitely the way to go. So anyway, quick comparison to the Burson Conductor 3 reference. That is a $1,750 amp DAC stack, 2.5 times the cost. Well, I'm sorry, it's a combination, it's not a stack. It's 2.5 times the price of this stack. Okay, the DACs actually sound kind of similar to me, the built-in DAC in the Burson 3, but the amp part of the Burson 3 is on another level from the Zencan. It's just got more power, more authority, more punch. Like I said, it's a step up. It's another level up. But once again, it's 2.5 times the price. Okay, the Audio GD stack. This is the Master 9 and the R8 MK2 DAC. That is a $4,200 stack. How does this compare? How does it get you anywhere close? The Audio GD stack is definitely probably 2 levels higher than this. There's a big difference, but it's not 6.5 times the difference. The Audio GD stack is 6.5 times the price of the i-Fi stack. Is it 6.5 times better? No. Is it twice as good? Probably not. I would say this gets you maybe 60 or 70% of the way there. The Audio GD, the difference, it just sounds bigger. It's just bigger in every way. It's just got more weight. It's a little richer. It's more dynamic. It has a bigger sound stage. It's just a bigger sound, especially in the higher end headphones. Okay, the Hi-Fi Man headphones up to like the Ananda, you're not going to hear a huge difference. But if you're using a higher end headphone, the Aria Stealth, the ZMF Atrium, the Kennerton Ragnar, you plug those into the Audio GD stack, yeah, you're going to hear a significant difference. But like I said, not a fair comparison, 6.5 times the price. But I was just curious, how close can a $650 stack get you to what I consider as kind of reference? I mean, not ultimate reference, but pretty high-end equipment that is my current reference. And like I said, it probably gets you 60 or 70% of the way there. So do I recommend this, the amp and the DAC as a staff? Yeah, I do. It's really good. It's very clean, very detailed, very versatile. That's the main thing. 4 digital inputs, including Bluetooth, 3 analog inputs on the amp, and small size. The stack, you can stack them on top of each other, but if you do that, put the amp on the top because it gets pretty warm. Doesn't take up much room on your desk, but very, very versatile. You can do so much with this. Like I said, the Hi-Fi Man, great sounding. The F400, great DAC, great amp, but no versatility. You've got one USB input and that's it. So you know, you got to weigh the weigh the differences and make your choice. And that's the question I keep getting. Which do I prefer? Sound wise, I prefer the Hi-Fi Man. As far as features and versatility, without a doubt, I prefer the i5. So that's basically where I'm at. So like I said, this worked great with some of the lower end Hi-Fi Man headphones. Perfect match. I would say basically this amp DAC combination is outstanding with any headphone up to probably about $500, and very good up to about the $1,000 range. Above that, if you have a headphone above $1,000, it's going to sound good with this headphone amp DAC combination, but you're probably not going to reach the absolute full potential of that headphone. But like I said, if you don't have a $3,000 or $4,000 amp DAC combination in your budget right now, this will bring out most of the potential of even a high-end headphone. So yeah, I really like it. I can recommend it, and I think it's a real good deal. I mean, $650 isn't cheap, but I think you're getting a good amp DAC stack combination for that price, and I think it would be hard to beat at that price. So considering all the features and everything. So anyway, gonna wrap this up. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And the Headphone Experience at Facebook, I believe, is up to 18.7 thousand members. We just keep growing over there, so you're all welcome to join us. And once again, thanks for watching my video.